What is going on in the world, Lubie? I mean, and good morning, people. It's good to have you guys with us. Destined to go to the racetrack later on today. You know, and Mayo's good. I mean, he keeps bringing those Friday and Saturday forms. Although, one thing I find, and I love Tony Screno, but he always ends up taking like the Saturday racing form.
Oh, does he? Does he even bet? Why does he need the Saturday one? Is he betting on Saturday?
I don't know. I mean, is that just a byproduct of being in the media forever, where whatever they're giving away, you're taking one? Like, even though you have like zero use for it.
What do you mean?
Is he watching FanDuel? I don't think so. That's not Tony's bag.
I have no interest at all in even watching any of it, and I almost grab it every week.
Yeah. It's insane, isn't it? Right? You wouldn't know how to read it anyway, right? I mean, look, it's no shame if you have never looked at a racing form. You look at it, it's like, what the fuck is this? That's probably the worst move that you can make in any kind of relationship. Try to teach your girlfriend to read the racing form. Not that she's incapable. No. Now, here's the thing. If she already knows everything about the form and she's pointing out things to you on the first date,
oh, that's great.
How do you feel about that woman?
Yeah, it's amazing.
But is she ever going to buy your bullshit when she's already surpassed you in terms of her degenerate levels, which would be the ultimate test? Because I like that when, you're with somebody. Now, this is only in my fantasies, Libby. Where you're with a woman at the track and she says, can you believe this, Christoph? Come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
This is the second time he's put blinkers on this horse, and guess what happened both times? Finished last. Then he has the barn send in a bunch of money, so the horse is 4 to 5 every flash, and you know what happens with 4 to 5 favorites. People believe in them.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Great to be with you here. The Degenerate Friday edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest and one Mike Lubitz. That is always an interesting adventure, taking a woman to the track.
Yeah.
Most guys, I mean, it's just the opposite. And I probably had too much of an ego about it, even though, I would have to admit that in terms of really having a lot of confidence in my horse race handicapping, I'm a lousy handicapper. I just am. I'm not that good at it. People think they're great at it, that they're invincible. And, they're routinely wrong or way off base, or whenever they're most certain about something, it usually turns out not to be the case. If anything, just the opposite. The horse gets left in a gate, is last all the way around, and you're looking at the guy and saying, hey, Mr. Big, what do you got for me now? Nothing. The guy just shrugs his shoulders. You know what? The trainer told me this one couldn't lose. But if you're really honest with yourself, there are guys I know that I have respect for their handicapping acumen. They're dead wrong a lot of the times, too. That's going to happen. I mean, whether you're handicapping sports or handicapping, especially horse racing, where you're not going to be right as often as you would be. Picking games is somewhat of a 50-50 proposition, is it not, Libby? We know that over the years. Where, could you really kill yourself if you had San Francisco? I guess, maybe our good friend Sheldon G had a little bit of capital on there. That might have been, I don't know how painful that was, but we love you, Sheldon. And we live vicariously through these tickets that you post on Facebook. Because I don't care if I have $5 on the game, and I know somebody else that I am, fond of as a human being has like 500,000 on the game, and you're thinking, what must that be like?
I don't want to know what that's like. Would lose it. I couldn't.
You know what it's like to get psychotic over a 5-spot.
I can't stand. Yeah,
I guess you know what it is. It's the modern day way. The Polyman pointed this out to me many years ago, and it's true. We were using that as a theory behind the trivia challenge when we first developed the trivia challenge. That people, that especially if you played sports at any level, I don't care, like the lowest recreational level, and you weren't very good. But you still, you were competitive.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big part of it. Now some guys just didn't care. I was never one to linger in agony over a loss. I don't know. Maybe that prevented me from being a better player or more accomplished. I'm not sure. I don't think so, because I just don't believe in that. Do you, Lubie? What are you going to sit there and whine and kvetch about? For days, for years? Some people never let it go.
I hate losses, don't get me wrong, especially as a fan. I'm not great about it, but I don't know. I don't know if I let it eat me alive. I don't think that's true.
Everybody's got their head down. I used to find that just absolutely crazy, right? You'd be on a team bus on the way back from yet another Syracuse baseball bludgeoning. And, riding back, and you're going back from Rochester. That's about an hour of really boring bus ride. Unless you're having a good fucking time. right? So everybody's hanging their head. Well, what would be the point, Libby? It just never made any sense to me. So I'd start cracking jokes, and naturally, I fell out of favor with the coach very quickly. Because I mean, what do you want to be bummed out for? Smoke a joint and let's go. This was like we haven't had that feeling here since 1969. But I was never one to really fetch over it. The problem is you're probably used to losing most of your life.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, you're not supposed to be, but yes.
I like to think that overall, like in all recreational games, I don't know. Could you imagine trying to calculate your record lifetime in all sports, Louie? But I'm gonna assume that even though I've been on some really lousy teams in my lifetime, both in organized sports and recreationally, just gone out there and taken a bludgeoning from a bunch of guys like game after game after game. But I'm going to assume that my record is above 500 in all sports, all games ever played lifetime.
Good for you.
That's one-on-one, whatever. I mean, whatever you were playing. It didn't tennis. I'm now. Part of that is trying to find a path of least resistance, which is one of my favorite activities, and that is find a lot of easy opponents. Find a guy that you can beat like a drum. And if some guy squashes you like a grape, but don't aspire to be a better player because you learned from the loss. Fuck that. Go find another chump and beat the shit out of him.
Oh my God.
But that would be interesting. I mean, what if somebody could hand you that stat? Like all games you ever played in, whether it was in the park somewhere, a 2-on-2, whatever the hell you were doing, softball, volleyball games that you got roped into, even though you didn't really know how to play all that well, which, wow. I mean, could you ever see yourself, Louie, if I was going to come back in another lifetime, would it not be beneficial? I don't know how much money the lower tier guys make.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that they're all making enough money to support some very massive tans and fit bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to come back as a beach volleyball player? Pro beach volleyball.
Oh, yeah. They must make decent money and like
the babes alone.
Women around all the time.
Oh, my God. Holy carch fucking karai, man. This guy.
I did really well.
No shortage of, I don't want to use, any kind of a word that might be disparaging to women, but no shortage of it around the court there. My God.
That's 100% true.
Just in awe of the physicality of this game here, where they go up and rarely, the serving team almost always loses the point, Lubie. So it gets to be like 20-20 based on that, and then one shot makes the difference in a game. But it looks like a nice way to make a living, that's for sure. And you were going to find that you were very much in the favor of beautiful women if you were a male beach volleyball player. What did they have? They had St. John Smith.
Yes.
Who was the guy that played with St. John Smith? He was a real good Randy Stokelis was the guy's name.
Nice. I remember St. John Smith. I didn't remember Randy.
Randy Stokelis was like a hulk of a guy, real good-looking kid, man. And you knew he was getting, I don't want to use a word like pie, but you knew he was getting all the action that he could possibly soak up after, being out there exhausting himself playing beach volleyball. That would be that. But anyway, getting back to this whole thing with the women at the track, women at the track almost routinely, and I had more of an ego about it. And that's how I got started talking about being a lousy handicapper, because I knew I was a loser. All right. But a woman, you would be with a woman, even a woman that you were completely infatuated with, if not mentally, certainly physically. Mm-hmm. And she would say, "Oh, I like the 3. I love the blue saddlecloth." Probably wouldn't even use a term like saddlecloth. Just basically handicapping based on the color of the fucking horse's numbers. Yeah,
that's blanket. What usually women do, yes. Or name. Sure.
And you look at her after looking over the racing form, and you're thinking to yourself, man, you're gorgeous, but what a moron, man. There's no way I would bet that horse. It's 50-1 on the board, and of course, what happens? It routinely comes in. And what did you do, Libby? You let your ego get in the way of what otherwise would have been a winning pick, a kind of selection that you would have never made because it was outside your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You were constantly going to be gravitating towards the chalk and make a fool of yourself in front of this woman who then says, "Oh, how much did I win?" And you didn't bet anything on it for her. Nothing.
Oh, see, I'm not a degenerate. I do whatever. If Shirley wants money on a horse,
you're in a different type of relationship, though.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, so I don't want to hear her. So I think I did leave at, what was it, cloud computing or something, because she's into internet. And
that was a good horse.
I think we did a brunch bash, and or it was maybe even before then. We were there for the races, and we put money on all these different horses because that's what always happens. And I think I left out Cloud Computing, and of course, Cloud Computing won. And she, to this day, she gives me shit. I'm like, you wanted 5 horses.
Yeah.
How many?
Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah. Like they'll name off 11 different horses.
Like, what am I supposed to do? It's only, there's only 12, there's 12 horses. You wanted 4.
Yeah. So you eliminated 1. Holy Ton Shrup. What are we talking about?
That's the one that won, of course.
No, it's always weird. And then, you didn't bet any money on the horse for your wife to be or whatever. And she's expecting the payoff and sees it light up the board at 136.60. And you're thinking, I'm going to have to cough over at least like a $2 denomination bet here. Otherwise, that's it, man. No soup for you. It'll be over. But in general, I mean, is that not usually the case? Are you better off knowing nothing about this stuff? That sometimes seems like the way to go. That if you had no knowledge of it whatsoever, I mean, as is typical of what most people have, at least at some time. I didn't have beginner's luck. Did you, Lubie? No beginner's luck for me. I began a loser, and I'm still a loser to this day.
The first time I was there was when you won and shared money with me, and I was the main.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were asking for.
You told me I would
I
get.
thought I shaved you like 20 cents or something when I was handing you like $500, which was pretty.
Is I was in my 20s at that point, so I didn't fall in love with it. You fell in love with
it. At that time, I was having a fairly good streak. I had my one good streak of my lifetime during that period of time, where I used to actually walk into the place with some measure of confidence.
Yeah, you were.
Imagine that.
You did really well on it. There was like a horror, like you killed it, and Jers was there. I think Gergs was there. We were in the
everybody was making money. It was great.
Everyone was happy.
But the other side of that is Argentine Tango, which I mean will haunt me to my grave. Think about that. I still see this horse, literally, Lubie, passing everybody and going to blow by the field and win by 10 lengths going away. And somehow get disqualified for maybe, I mean, I don't even know, might have created a little bit of a breeze as he flew by this horse on the outside. And somehow they disqualified him for brushing against this horse who finished like 5th and was going nowhere at the time. I mean, this horse literally like a jet plane, Lubie, in the stretch. If Dave Johnson was calling the race, he would have fallen out of the booth with exuberance over the fact that this horse was flying in the stretch. Flying, Lubie. But it still haunts me to this day. And it's unfortunate because that pretty much is much more the story of my life in terms of gambling than any kind of high. But that one year, though, I don't know what it was. I had like some kind of bravado that I didn't possess before when it came to virtually everything. I was having a particularly good time. And I just felt, I mean, have you ever felt this way as a degenerate gambler? You can never concede to this, can you? That for a brief moment, you feel somewhat invincible.
Oh, yeah, that's bad. I mean, well, that's the problem is I think all of you do feel that way. That's the thing.
Me, Conan, eat live lion, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Feels good, though. I mean, but usually, and it's true, the great opening lines of books, and, Andy was suggesting that I opened my book, Death Threat Online 2, with I was banging this exercise rider at Hialeah Park, which isn't a bad opening line for a book, is it? What do you think? Would you read the second sentence if that was the first one? Call me Ishmael. I mean, does that really ring a bell? I mean, does that make you think, oh, geez, I'm going to read this book, 400 more pages about some schmuck named Ishmael? I don't know. It's not even his name. He wants to have you call him Ishmael. That is like maybe the most famous opening line of any book. Is that possible? Call me Ishmael. Okay, go fuck yourself. You're Ishmael. I don't know. I mean, but yeah, Andy Beyer had it. Women and gambling don't mix. That was the single greatest standout opening line of any book I've ever seen. Has anybody managed to mingle that dynamic successfully? Where you're gambling with your wife or your spouse and it goes well?
I would say, I don't know if they win or not, but I know Segredo's wife is big into horses.
Yeah.
And she's
that surprised me when he said that he actually brought the farm home so they could send it in on a Saturday.
Yes, she's big into horses, and she, I think, does decent well. Like, she at least hasn't lost him the farm. So, I mean, so yes, she doesn't do the.
He literally has a farm, this guy.
He does. She doesn't do the slots. So and it's not like she's going to the track. So how much
Slots is super dangerous, my friend.
Yes,
Super dangerous.
I think they're one of the rare couples that they wager together and it's been successful. But it's
It is amazing how these casinos, capitulate. Just absolutely fawn over slot players. Think about this: the penny slot machine. You're punching up $8.80 every spin on the penny slot machine, Libby. $8.80 a roll.
Jesus.
Now I get nervous when I'm playing for quarters. I really do. I guess that's a throwback. We used to freely pitch quarters as a kid growing up in Brooklyn when a quarter could actually buy you some shit.
Yeah.
You could actually not even break $1 and have a pretty good day.
I was gonna say you can get burgers, ice cream. You could probably get a whole thing for $1.
It's fucking amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's all relative, but we were pitching quarters back then, and it wouldn't be uncommon to lose quite a stack, right? Where you had like a roll of quarters you got from the bank, $10, and next thing you know, you got like 75 cents. You're like, hey, can you lend me a quarter so I can get this ice cream? But yeah, I mean, the gambling aspect of it certainly has gone up exponentially, and it's crazy. I believe that to be true. That women and gambling in general don't mix, Libby. At least when the Mustang is winning all these jackpots, which the last time out wasn't so favorable, but she was doing real well before that. But we divide immediately upon entrance into a casino because I have no interest in the machines and she has no interest in the horses.
Yep.
So it works out well from that standpoint. You're not actually mingling, and now where it gets prohibitive is when you've gotten clobbered and then you find out she also has been to the ATM machine and beat you to it. And is down the other nickel that you were counting on making a comeback with. And that's it. All right. Some stuff going on. We were talking about this on our No Filter show, and it's called The Morning Briefing on Caffeine TV. You can Google that, and you can see what we do and maybe even find some of this similar material that we're milking through both shows. But we were talking about this business with Caleb Williams and how people perceive this NFL Combine, which draws headlines, but I don't know does it still strike the same nerve with people that it did when it first became televised and people realized what a joke it was? I don't know. Is it a joke? What do you think about the NFL Combine?
I don't watch it on purpose.
A fair assessment.
At Landlubbers, it was on yesterday, and this year FSU has a lot of guys, especially on defense involved, on both sides of the ball actually. So FSU guys kept coming up, and FSU guys were kicking ass. So I was comparing them to the other guys, but I mean, like at home, I wouldn't go and find it. I will tell you, like you said on our other show, when NFL Network first came out, I would like sit there at home, and I was in college, and I would like watch it. We would be doing things that you do when you're hanging out and you're in college, and as
you were smoking weed and watching a combine?
We would watch. We would get because again, that's what we do for football games, right? We would wake up.
And you had a master's degree, also. I mean, while you were doing this,
was this during master's? It might have been my master's year. I don't know. This might have been my senior year.
Master's degree.
For the master's. But during games, we would like smoke blunts and drink. So the combine will come out, and there's no football, right? But this replaces football. And I remember like we would watch intently the fucking combine, but I haven't watched it like that again. It's
been a long time since I, found myself
a long time since I like
sticking on the combine.
Appointment television, but I watched it yesterday because again, like it was just on. Now I'll tell you, if I'm out somewhere and it's on, it will catch my eye just because we talk about it so much, we bullshit about it so much that I will watch it. Like if a women's college basketball game is on, I'm not watching it. I don't give a fuck.
I'll tune in for a few minutes just to see if my opinion is still valid.
You're better than me. Yeah. I won't. But if the combine's on, as stupid as it is,
you'll watch it for some stupid reason. Exactly. You're watching essentially a bunch of really large guys show more athleticism than you thought they possessed from watching them play football, doing a bunch of agility drills. Correct? I mean, which I would imagine would be a factor. I mean, you would want to see this demonstrated by a player. You don't want a guy that, and yet the classic example, like we were talking about, which I think is in essence the poster. I mean, it's the Jerry West logo for the combine is Tom Brady's 40-yard dash, where Rich Eisen in street clothes and shoes is outrunning Tom Brady, one of the greatest players ever, if not, in many people's opinion, certainly the most accomplished player in the National Football League's fabled history. That's saying a lot, isn't it?
Yep.
Now think about that, right? Holy Jim Brown, what are we talking about here? Greatest ever, Lubie. Is that even? I mean, is that just Stephen A. Smith material and ESPN fodder for debate? I mean, can you really ever say? Although I'm inclined to believe now that LeBron James is the greatest ever
We had this
basketball player. Yeah.
for quarterback. I don't know NFL player overall, but quarterback. The guy won 6 and he went to. Did he win 10? Did he go to 10 or he won 7? He won 7 and went to like 11. I mean,
7. I think he was. Was he 6-3 in Super Bowls with the Patriots, and then he won his only one with Tampa Bay? I want to say he was 7-3 in Super Bowls.
And so, and he had stats, and he had everything. So, and he had
and he was largely responsible for a lot of it. Rules notwithstanding that were violated in his favor, but are created in his favor. But all that being said, I mean, how many times did he come through with a lot of clutch performances? He really did.
I hate him, and the cheating I think factors in and all that. But by any standard, he'll be the greatest ever quarterback. Fine. The LeBron discussion's interesting, and it's again we've talked about this too. To compare eras is dumb. Just the way they officiate, the way the game's played. Again, if they shot threes in the 80s, Bird would have been fucking even greater. Like they barely shot threes. If they played physical now, like who knows what will it be? It's just the Bears is dumb. But like you and I talked about yesterday, and I was talking about this with Andy Man and Ken as he jumps in. Like just looking at LeBron's career is to me fucking stupid. Like his career is
incredible. You get the feeling if he came back next year, which seems like he has intentions of doing. I mean, he hasn't expressed anything otherwise. He's still going to be just as good. I mean, after 20 years in the league, the longevity of it is what has me kind of moved.
Well, the fact that he never missed time, like he missed time here and there later on, but it wasn't that much time. He's never missed. Every guy missed a year, a half a year. Like it's just, I don't want to get into the best ever conversation. Jordan won 6, never whatever, because again, the title thing gets overweighted. You and Ken talk about that all the time.
Although I'm inclined now to agree with the professor, who we welcome into the show, that to be considered the greatest of all time, not just great.
Should have won at least 1 or 2 or 3.
Maybe
whatever.
you have to have one title. That's possible. How are you, Professor?
I'm good.
Are you a LeBron fan? I mean, what do you make of all
I'm a
this?
huge LeBron fan.
Okay, good.
I mean, I don't like the way he abandoned Miami and took Dwayne Wade with him to go be his cabana boy in Cleveland. But
Shit happens,
I really blame that more on D Wade than I blame that on LeBron.
That was great, though. I mean, when that was going on, think about that. I mean, how terrific was it? People were going to bars to watch Heat games,
right?
And in some bars they were getting like a free tab if the Heat lost, which they did frequently in the first 17. They were like 9-8. Didn't that one place on? It was in Hollywood,
right?
Whiskey Tango or something it was called. The guy went out of business, I think, because he kept losing.
I honestly assumed it was Lubie's trivia session that drove him out of
business. But, I mean, it was great when the guy was here. You were the center of the basketball universe, as probably is the case anywhere he goes.
LeBron, I don't really get the people who hate LeBron. I guess like bitter Jordan fans who are mad at the universe for being old.
Yeah,
it's really the only thing I can.
I mean, Jordan was great too. There's no doubt.
But I wonder if like they took their cues from the fact that like Jordan's like a clearly unhappy old man, despite the fact that he's
bitter,
a billionaire with a supermodel wife and a NASCAR team and whatever else. But
speedboats. I mean, he's got it all going.
But every time you see him, he's like a profoundly unhappy man. He does that documentary, and it's just 23 hours.
Oh my God.
Being pissed off at the world over a season where he won a championship.
I rather watch the stroke job Jay Billis did on himself about that Duke team than watch the Jordan thing again.
That's only like an hour long, and the Jordan one's like 24
weeks.
Hours.
Yes.
And it's
well produced, though. It was well produced, I thought.
It's all just Jordan being angry at the world over shit that happened 20 years ago. In a year you won the title, but like, the valet at the hotel got Pippen's car before he did mine.
Yeah.
Well, I went out and showed him that night. That summer.
I put a cigar out in his eyeball. Exactly.
Like,
on the way back to the hotel.
Like the security guard thought he could flip quarters better than me. I beat him for $500, and then I went and had sex with his ugly wife.
He did come off as somewhat of a bitter
like,
douche.
You've
Yes.
got some issues.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wasn't a big fan of Jerry Krause.
And the funny thing is, his fans were so into this. They're like, oh, even today, Michael remembers that guy who disrespected him on the court.
Yeah, that's weird, guys.
Celebrate.
It's like, let it go.
Title that year.
That's fucking weird.
Unnecessarily.
Certainly, Rodman was not taking it in the same spirit as Jordan was.
Oh, no.
You developed a respect for being somewhat of an abstract human being when you saw how Rodman was handling things with long runs in Vegas.
Rodman was like, "Oh yeah, Carmen Electra wanted to hang out, so I went and banged her in Vegas instead of playing the Kings that night." Makes perfect sense to me.
And Phil was on board with it, man. Jackson. That was the best part of it. It's just like, go ahead, Dennis. Go be Dennis, as they say. All right, we're going to come back. We have a big board, and we'll have some college hoops. Getting, real serious right now. Did you see the picture?
Because a couple of guys complained last week that we didn't talk about it. We're going to do a little bit more of a serious breakdown on the college hoops.
Oh, very good. How about that?
Ripping into Caitlin Clark this week.
Yeah. Caitlin is going pro after we said that she was coming back for sure for next year. That was great. How much of a pay cut does she take going to the WNBA?
Darren Rovell, $750,000, although that number is highly contested.
In terms of what? Being too low?
No.
People have no idea what kind of money she's making.
Will the sponsors just follow her? Because that's the thing is, I'm curious.
Right now, and it's hard to find firm numbers on this, she's making $931,000 in NIL money.
That's sweet.
Supposedly none of it comes from the Iowa Collective, which is interesting. The question, of course, is going to be how many eyes are going to remain on her in the WNBA as opposed to college basketball. And I don't know. There's not the built-in audience for the WNBA like there is for college sports.
I don't think I've seen Indiana play ever.
They don't just air it like they do the college basketball.
Right now, college women's basketball is getting better television spots than the WNBA does.
Oh, I would think, yeah.
Yep.
Is that because of Caitlin Clark, and will that translate to Caitlin Clark's pro career? We don't know. I mean, look, right now you've got Fox Sports, I think, has already aired something like 6 women's college basketball games in relatively prime spots for college sports. Is a network going to do that for the WNBA with Caitlin Clark? I wouldn't think so. Yeah. I mean, the WNBA's ratings have never been as good as women's college basketball. So I don't know what those endorsement deals are going to look like, honestly.
All right, we'll see what happens. Caitlin Clark, though, kind of surprising because she probably could have gone, for another 6 or 7 years there at Iowa.
Right.
With subsequent rule changes being made to accommodate.
Her and Zach Edey could just stay in college forever.
How old is Zach Edey? Is he like 40? The guy looks like an old man. He really does.
He does look 40, but I think he's only 21. Like 20.
He's 21. I looked it up.
I saw an interview with him the other night on Scott Van Pelt. He actually came across as a relatively likable human being. Zach Edey, as much as you
got
despise
that Andre the Giant thing where
he does. Looks like Yao Ming a little bit, in the post.
So he's gonna look like he's 45 when he's 20.
All right, we're going to come back with the professor. Some college basketball. He's going to get into greater detail, I guess, this week after some complaints were heard. I didn't mean to forward you that hate mail that we were getting on the segment. I always find that discouraging to the performer. When
not to me.
They used to do it, to Lubie and me all the time, and then knowing that we were super and hypersensitive to this stuff. And, that would be the only thing. The program director would send us a copy of a phone call she had on her voicemail saying that the show sucked and we were, racist bigots and pieces of shit. And they were not only boycotting our sponsors, the 2 sponsors we had, but the entire sponsorship of iHeart Radio and Media.
Fortunately, the point of most of what I do is to annoy people. So,
I think you do a very good job of it. I mean, as evidenced
I appreciate that
by the litigation that's doubtless going to follow. All right, we're going to come back. Just
for you expressing that sentiment, I'll do some Nazi jokes.
No, please. Even I've refrained from that because I was going to talk about how, in gym class they tortured you because somebody had swastika the bathroom.
Oh, Jesus.
But I even stopped myself at that point, and made some other reference. All right, we're coming back with the professor here in a moment. Now that.
The time
It's 8:35.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Brian Flores had just kept his mouth shut, collected his $100,000 per loss checks,
Very
and
true.
done his job. That was what you were hired for, asshole. You weren't down here to compete. You weren't down here to try to win games. You were hired to lose games so we could get the number one pick in the draft, you piece of trash. And then you've got the nerve to sue your boss because you refuse to lose your boss's instruction. And you know what? I hope you stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I hope Joe Burrow kicks your ass twice a year for the rest of your life, because that's what you deserve for not doing your job, you piece of garbage.
Well stated, Professor. All right, I can't even imagine where we're going with number one.
Honestly, can you imagine if you're the Arizona Cardinals right now and you are getting ready to possibly hire this man as your head coach? If I'm Kyler Murray's agent, I'm calling the Cardinals front office and say, that's fine. Trade my client right fucking now. Do not put this bum anywhere near my player who you just signed for $200 million. Do not put this piece of garbage. If I see Ryan Fitzpatrick in Las Vegas because it's 100 miles from Phoenix, I want everybody in the front office fired or my client out of this franchise.
The best way to kick off your day is with Defo plus Lubie. We now return to the Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. Jeff DeForest, Michael Lubie, Lubitz. We have begun March. It's March 1st and March 17th, I want to say, is Selection Sunday for the NCAA tournament. We still have conference tournaments to undergo and to experience. I will be, Professor, I'm going to make my first appearance ever. I may not be ever. I think I might have called back in the day some FAU basketball on some vehicle, but going to the FAU Saturday game. I don't know how meaningful this is going to be, but where are they at?
Not very, because they've already pretty much lost the conference, right?
Yeah.
After the loss to Memphis, I think the best they can finish is second.
So where do they stand in terms of tournament qualifications?
I mean, they're getting in. They're ranked, or they were going into last week. They're in at large, particularly after the run last year. But you're going to the Tulane game on Saturday, huh?
Gonna head out there, yeah, and see what it's all about. Yeah,
nice,
should be good.
Yeah, no, I think they're very solidly in at large. They spent most of the season ranked, but it's sort of interesting that you mentioned them because our main reference and has been for a long time. We mentioned it here on the show a bunch of the time when we start to look at the tournament, and it is March 1st, so it's a good time to start looking at the contenders and pretenders. Is the Ken Pomeroy rankings, of course, which when I first got wind of them was probably like 15 or 20 years ago, were a legitimate kind of secret sauce to picking your tournament. And now, of course, they become very large. They talk about them on the CBS ranking, on the CBS sports shows all the time. And he's become a known thing working for major media outlets. But I still find them to be a very good basic guide to start with March. And the thing when you're looking at the Pomeroy rankings, that is kenpom.com for those who are unfamiliar. What you want to focus on are the adjusted offense and adjusted defense rankings. That is offense and defense adjusted according to pace, because of course You have teams that still play that Tony Bennett style of walk-up basketball, and teams that just like to run and shoot all over the place. So it can be tough to mathematically quantify your offense efficiency adjusted for pace. And the key that you want to look for there, I believe it is 22 of the last 24 national champions have ranked both inside the top 20 in both adjusted offense and adjusted defense. And we'll just start looking at it this year, right at the moment. Now, again, 2 weeks left in the regular season and the conference tournament games. So these numbers can change, but right at the moment, that tells you your key contenders. The Houston Cougars are, I believe, 6-13. UConn just got back inside the top 20 on defense. They're number 3 on offense, and I believe number 18 on defense. Tennessee just got inside the top 20 on offense. I'm a little tenuous with the Tennessee Volunteers in terms of a national championship because they're kind of a one-man gang with Dalton Connect, and those teams don't tend to go all the way.
That guy's impressive, man. I've seen a little of him so far this year, and wow, this last ball game was sensational.
One that might surprise people, but have actually been inside the top 20 pretty much all year long. The Arizona Wildcats, who've kind of got largely ignored out there in the Pac-12, but have been remarkably consistent. And then you've got the Auburn Tigers are the last team. They're just barely in.
No, UConn? No, UConn's not on the list?
No, UConn is on the list. They just worked their way back after the Creighton game to back inside the top 20 on defense. But on defense, they have been a bit of an edge case. Now, edge case is teams that are inside the top 25 in both, but not inside the top 20. Purdue, only 22nd on defense. Duke, 21st on defense. I believe 7th or 8th on offense. North Carolina, actually kind of an edge case in both. I believe they're 18th and 23rd offense and defense. Marquette, 11th and 21st offense and defense. And Creighton have just worked their way in. After spending a good part of the year only being like in the mid-40s on defense, have worked their way down to, I believe they're now 25th in defense. So they're back in the picture there. So those are some of the edge teams that could probably work their way in. And most importantly here, I think, let's some of the frauds. Number 1 fraud, Alabama, number 1 offense in the country, only 100th on adjusted defense for an Alabama team that spent a lot of the year inside the top 10. Iowa State, another team, just left the top 10 last week, but they're only 51st on adjusted offense. Illinois, again, been top 15 most of the year, top 10 in offense, but 95th in adjusted defense. Our own FAU Owls, sadly, 13th, I think, in adjusted offense in the country, but only 103rd in adjusted defense. And largely because, honestly, they don't pressure the ball very well. They don't cause very many turnovers. And we saw that come up very big in their loss to Memphis last Saturday. And then, surprisingly to me, anyway, probably the biggest notable name among the frauds, Kansas, apparently a fraud this year, only 47th in the country in adjusted offense. So this could be one of the years where the Jayhawks take out an early exit. And then finally, we'll just drop you a few what I'll term Cinderellas. These are teams that are not going to win the national championship, but if you look at their combination of offense and defense, could make some noise in the tournament. Aren't necessarily names you would expect, but have both top 40 ratings in an offense and defense. Wake Forest, who just upset Duke last week, unfortunately injured the big Pollock. It seemed like he deserved it the big time, but it turned out he was just lying about it so he could crybaby his way into the next game. But top 40 on both an offensive defense. A team I know near and dear to your heart because of their coach, St. John's, actually top 40 in both offensive.
That's the article he's showing you is they may make a late push.
There it is.
Yes, there you go.
They need a series of bizarre mathematical permutations to happen.
I mean, based on luck, I think they.
But they play 2 dog, teams coming up, like the worst of the conference in their last 2 games.
And lots of great Italian restaurants in New York City.
You gotta love Patino, man. I mean, he puts himself into it.
Bang out the cocktail.
It's not like he's in there coasting. I mean, you can tell he's emotionally involved in this whole fucking thing. I think it's great.
And then TCU team that has actually pulled a couple of nice upsets at home. They've been kind of bad on the road, but are once again Cinderella possibilities, teams that could win a couple games. And then a couple teams from the Mountain West Conference, Colorado State, New Mexico. Both have spent some time ranked this year, so it's not a huge shock. But both offensive and defensive efficiency in top 40. So those are some teams when you're filling out your brackets. Maybe don't be afraid to pick an upset or two.
All right. Ken Pomeroy, man.
That was a lot.
But when the professor defers to somebody who's an expert in these sort of analytical things, you have to immediately respect the idea that this guy might be the man to turn to on such matters. All right, interesting stuff there, Professor.
Wait, before we go on, I know I said I wasn't going to bash Caitlin Clark anymore.
But feel free,
this came
some pot
up
shots,
last night because we've got a South Florida connection here. Went hugely viral. The tweet by the Hard Rock betting app asking yesterday, how many points a game would Caitlin Clark average if she could play in the NBA?
That would be 0.
Zero.
And anybody who thinks it's more than 0, you're a fucking moron.
She might throw in a chuck somewhere.
Yeah, but they wouldn't let her chuck. She's not athletic.
Yeah.
The shittiest.
Right. Who's letting her get a shot off?
But somewhere along the way, I mean, an arbitrary, kind of scrum situation there where maybe you're expecting a left hook from Kermit Washington. She might get free and chuck in a 3-pointer.
What NBA guy is
you might score in an NBA game. It's not out of the question, Professor.
No, not going to happen.
It's possible.
For the exact same reason that it's not going to happen for me, because 6-foot people can't score in the NBA anymore. Because there used to be a time where like the John Crotties of the world hung around on the Heat bench and shot free throws and made 3-pointers. Those dudes don't exist in the NBA. All those dudes are like 6'7" now. Bruce Bowen ruined that gig for all short white guys in college basketball.
Yes,
it's probably true. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if Larry Brown could play in today's NBA.
Like everybody these days saw the Spurs like 20 years ago and like, oh, instead of having like that slow white guy who can only hit free throws, who hangs out in the corner and shoots threes, we can have a 6'7" dude who defends people.
Holy David Wingate.
So that's what we want.
No, interesting. Yeah, it used to be like those John Thompson Georgetown teams where everybody was 6'4", and weighed 165 pounds, and you just didn't want them on you. It was one of those things where when they called out at the beginning of the game, I got the professor. You were like, "Fuck, I'll never get a shot off against this guy." Unbelievable. All right, we have to get to the big board. Do you have any basketball picks for us, or you want to go straight?
By the way, I just saw the comment by Mike Nyman. Yeah, again, Gators, total frauds in terms of tournament success, 82nd in the country in adjusted defense.
Sorry, Mike. I mean, he was having such a good time here on the chat line. Big board of the dumbest, most unbreakable records. Okay, that's an interesting one.
Because we've been talking about
this whole Caitlin Clark thing.
Scoring records and other records. We thought we'd look at some of the most unbreakable records in college basketball, because I think it indicates that as much shit as we give college football as a sport for corruption and idiocy and everything, college basketball really deserves more credit. Like it's way up there for dumb shit. And we'll start, of course, with number 5, which is the record for most tournament appearances without a Final Four, which goes to BYU with 30 appearances, 0 Final Fours. In fact, the last time BYU made the 8s was 1981 with Danny Ainge going full court in a Sweet 16 game to get them to the 8s. So not only have they never gone to the Final Four, not only have they not made the 8s in 40-plus years, the problem with BYU is that their best players still are dudes who look like Danny Ainge. They're still 6'1" white guys who are suspiciously look like they're 42 years old. It's still Jimmer.
I think Wahlberg's going to play this guy in the movie.
Like Chris Collinsworth was like his nephew or something, was one of their best players just a couple of years ago. Like, I mean, honestly, it's got to be hard to recruit for college basketball when you have things like no alcohol. All the girls don't believe in premarital sex. All the girls very much believe in getting married at 18. Like, that's got to be tough to sell to a kid who wants to come in and collect some NIL money and move on with his life.
He was looking for the Patino dorm, as he's being recruited by Louisville. Speaking of Rick. That would be a detrimental aspect, I would imagine. Those visits to BYU can't possibly as much fun as, say, USC.
Honestly, like, Coach, I can deal without the alcohol, but I really like 5-hour energy, so the caffeine thing.
Plus, you got to listen to the Osmonds all day. I mean, it would be a nightmare going to BYU, I would think.
Right? And 4 of your teammates are named Romney for some reason. Yeah, it's got to be rough to recruit. So I say this is an unbreakable record because number one, they keep making the tournament. They're going to make the tournament this year and make absolutely no noise. By the way, the next closest team is Xavier, has 28 appearances and no Final Four.
Right there.
But with Sean Miller there as a coach, I could easily see Xavier slipping in.
They've gotten close. They flirted with it.
Yeah.
But there's no way again, BYU has not gotten even to the 8s in going on 50 years. So, not picturing BYU. I say that record is unbreakable.
All right, good picture there of Danny Ainge. That's fantastic. Right, that's number 5, unbreakable records.
Number 4, and again, this wasn't that long ago, but I feel like somehow people have mysteriously forgotten this. For those who don't remember, this is Iowa State head coach Larry Eustachy, who, after losing to Missouri, went to a party at a Missouri apartment complex where students had sex with a student that cheated on with a Missouri student. Cheated on his wife and was pictured kissing as many as 10 other girls at the party. Can you imagine?
That's not even approachable. You're right.
And again, Iowa State was in the top 25. Can you imagine?
That is not good.
This happened in college football. Can you imagine if Mike Norvell got caught on campus in Gainesville banging out Gator chicks? I don't really think that's going to play well.
It was sort of rumored about Lane Kiffin, although I guess it was his own co-eds.
Okay. Again, honestly, I could see it happening. With
Kiffin was single. Remember, he was single.
Kiffin, honestly, it wouldn't even be that surprising. The fact that he's
not after doing those shows that we did at the Hooters in Boca, where most of the FAU co-eds were working, or many of them were.
Yeah, you've actually disproved this theory of mine, Defo, because I can totally picture Lane Kiffin doing that without much problems.
But this guy is pictured here like he's Jeffrey Epstein, man, with some 16-year-old. It's kind of sad.
And a can of PBR.
Wow.
Too, which again,
do they even make that anymore? Pabst Blue Ribbon.
My theory of this is my theory of this is totally wrong because you're right. Lane Kiffin would do all of this without really at moments hesitation.
He wouldn't look as goofy though as this guy does. I mean, that's not a flattering picture.
He might wear the visor while he was doing it. So
what would possess a guy in that position to actually go ahead and make this move? I mean, that's
right.
That's the astounding part of all that. Never mind. I mean, the other elements that are there that aren't particularly, flattering either. All right, that's number 4. Most rival co-eds banged,
particularly since you lost the game.
That's a record that I believe is unapproachable. Even Lane Kiffin probably wouldn't have gone to the opposite, rival side.
Right. That's what I feel like. That's the difference between Lane Kiffin.
It's kind of like distinguishing these Caitlin Clark records from Pete Maravich. I mean, come on.
Lane Kiffin is not gonna go and bang Alabama co-eds.
All right, so that's number 4.
Georgia
maybe because if you've ever seen the campus at the University of Georgia, it would be. But again, not really his rival, and he's probably not that tempted by Mississippi State because I picture Mississippi State as the one SEC school where the talent pool is limited on that front.
One would think, not exactly Daisy Dukes,
Right? We've all seen the pictures. We've all seen the pictures of Ole Miss girls, so I feel like Mississippi State's going to hold no temptation.
All right, that's number 4 on the list. This is records that won't be broken.
And I just love that Lubie just mumbled Jesus there because, he feels this is in bad taste.
No, we haven't even gotten to the poor taste portion of the program yet.
Number 3, Baylor basketball. Most teammates murdered.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Again, this is only 20 years ago. This isn't that long ago. Remember how horrified we were when an Alabama player gave a gun to another player who murdered somebody? You forgot only 20 years ago a Baylor teammate murdered another teammate, and then his coach wanted to cover the murder up and tell the police that his player got killed because he was dealing drugs on campus.
That was very clever on the part of Baylor.
So really, this record might be tieable. But you
imagine this: that they don't even get the death penalty for that. I mean, SMU's got a legitimate beef. They were just guilty of some recruiting stuff. Here they covered up a murder.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's what he did. The coach.
You would have to murder 2 or more of your teammates
to break
this
Yes.
record. So I feel like maybe somebody at some point ties this record, but there's no way you're murdering 2 teammates.
When you factor in followed by a cover-up on the behalf of the administration.
Right, again, like we give Nick Saban a lot of shit.
He's
but
never
he's
done
never
this.
Once
No.
been like, oh, let me cover up a murder by saying the guy who got killed is a drug deal. Let me cover up a murder by defaming the victim.
I would imagine, and that staff probably got rehired somewhere else after all of this.
College basketball college football gets pretty far out there, man. But college basketball, we have had some characters as freaking coaches over the years.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, though. And likely, I mean, I see why it ranks, right there midstream in terms of the top 5, in terms of records that will never be broken. I don't see that one ever being eclipsed. I think you're safe there, Professor.
I know, right? Like, I can see a scenario where we get a teammate murdered, but you'd have to murder multiple teammates. I don't feel like that's
entire backcourt going down.
Exactly, they just got to murder.
All right, that's number 3. Most teammates murdered.
Number
yes.
2, and this one has obviously been talked about a lot. I will say men's college basketball.
Nice one. Yeah.
Record is never going down because you're never going to have a scenario where they let you coach your kid. They let your kid shoot 40 times a game, as you can see from the picture here. Like, I'm going to be triple teamed to just throw the ball up at the basket behind my back.
There's 4 guys.
So I'm triple teamed. I'm going to put the ball behind my back and flip it up at the basket. I'm going to shoot 40 times a game. We're never going to make the tournament. We're barely going to have a winning record. And the coach manages to keep his job for 30 years. Like, I feel like there's no scenario where this could happen.
I love the guy's cutting to the basket wide open. Like, he's wide open cutting to the basket. And Pete's not even looking at him.
I know. He literally, this is a famous moment in his LSU career. He flips the ball up from behind his back.
That's classic. Did it go in?
No, he didn't make that shot.
No, yes.
It went in. Oh, my God.
Yes. Good for him.
That would be the option you would consider, most favorable in that situation where you're surrounded by 4 guys while your teammate is under the basket by himself.
I feel like that's the option you consider most favorable if your dad coaches the team.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember, like, not so long ago, where, like, Cody Hawkins was, like, a decent quarterback in Colorado and everybody killed Dan?
Yeah.
Again, Tubby Smith's kid was not that bad, but because Kentucky lost in the 16s to Marquette, people not only wanted to fire Tubby Smith, they wanted to put his kid in prison for that. And, like, Saul wasn't that bad a player. Like, again, this situation at LSU where, like, you let your own kid shoot 40 times a game and while losing and nobody says anything for 3 years, I don't feel like that's sustainable in modern college basketball.
We didn't really care for Pete when he was a college basketball player. Us basketball purists, that were in the parks of Long Island, were always, just a blatant chucker. To the point, this was so extreme. And the fact that his father was the coach was the only reason that it could possibly happen.
That it could only happen in a scenario where your dad
that
is
was
the
it.
coach. Like, again, I don't feel like
now. Your dad can be
a sustainable situation, even if the kid is, like, really, really good.
Which Maravich was, but nonetheless, we didn't like his game that much.
It's just ridiculous.
I grew to appreciate him more later on in life.
Like, even though we know basketball talent is in the family bloodlines, if, like, 5 years from now Hurley has a kid who shows up playing for UConn, who shoots 35 times a game, I feel like that's going to be a problem, particularly if the team's not winning.
Yes.
Oh, this would never work today. No way. It's impossible. So you're right. Most points for a coach's kid. Unbreakable record, Professor. All right, where do we go to the top?
And the number one, I have to say, is in many ways, you can have your Wilt scores 100 points a game. Caitlin Clark scores 6,000 or whatever the hell it is, career points. You can have whatever record. I feel like this is the Mount Rushmore of records. I feel like this is the most unbreakable record in all of sports. And it's a man I like. I don't necessarily wouldn't use the word respect, but who I have always enjoyed. And that is Bob Huggins. 13 years at the University of Cincinnati, 0 players graduated. How the hell you managed to coach a squad for almost a decade and a half and not graduate a single player?
Seems impossible, doesn't it?
in your entire run.
Yeah, the guys that are like 6-year seniors and they
just for
graduate.
Just for reference, John Calipari has graduated 2 players at Kentucky.
Wow.
At a school where if you end up not leaving before at least your junior year, it is considered shameful. Like, I think if you get past your junior year at Kentucky, you leave early to go play in the Turkish League. Just because it is considered shameful to be a senior at Kentucky under Cal. He has graduated 2 players.
Wow.
I'm assuming completely by accident.
Must have been walk-ons or something. Yeah.
He has graduated 2 players. Meanwhile, the Huggy Bear, 13 years at the University of Cincinnati, not a single player graduated.
Pretty incredible record. I mean, especially with the emphasis there on academics being what it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
More arrests for punching a police horse
than graduated players.
Than graduated players. 1-0 on police horse punchers versus. You would think you'd run into a kid who was like 10th on the bench and realize there's no chance I'm playing in the pros. Like, I'm just going to graduate with my degree in something.
Yes.
Like, you would think you'd run into one of those kids in
somewhere.
You would think one of the crappy players you inherited when you took over would have gone on to graduate, just because, they were guys who weren't there when you started your philosophy of nobody graduates ever.
It's a remarkable,
But again,
remarkable run.
13 years, 0 graduates. Imagine if this happened in football.
Oh, God.
I don't know that it matters anymore, but I
mean, it does matter. Like, they ran Willie Taggart out of town in Tallahassee because Jimbo Fisher's players didn't graduate enough. Like, I don't know. Lubie's just playing with different screens now. It's very distracting.
I kind of like when everybody flips around a little bit.
No, it's a thing, so I want to make sure.
I kind of like the around the horn one where we were all close up. That looked really good. Anyway, 13 years, 0 graduations. To me, the most unbreakable record in all of college sports.
Beautiful stuff all the way through, Professor.
And then you got to love the people at the University of Cincinnati who were like, but we're winning again. Fuck it. Who cares?
What would they know, man? They're eating Skyline chili as if it was real food.
Once at a school board regents meeting, they'd be like, guys, 13 years, nobody's graduated. Like, that's kind of a problem.
You saw the overall improvement of the culture there, though, under Bob Huggins. That's for sure, right?
No doubt about it. They've never won
I'll
again
never forget.
after
Leslie Visser set up an interview with Bob Huggins. We were going to have him on about 9 a.m. one morning, and she calls him, and he answers the phone. Time he's supposed to be on, and he just says, it just makes a guttural sound. And we're like, hey, Bob, how are you? Good to have you on the program here. And the guy was completely out of it. I mean, he had to be so trashed that it's amazing that he was even able to pick up the phone to begin with, or that he would. And, so some of the subsequent stories that unfolded afterwards, it came as no surprise that this guy was like, did he do his whole career just bombed out of his mind? I mean.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, Professor?
Huggins? Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Very possible.
I mean, just completely bombed, the entire time. It's great. The bases were loaded, and so was I. That's the old book. All right, Professor, you have a great weekend. Enjoy all of the basketball wagers and everything else, and thanks for the discourse there. That was good stuff. People looking for some kind of guidance for the March Madness might want to consult these figures.
We're not that far away, as Defo said. Just 2 weeks.
I like to go in blind completely and just make arbitrary picks. Yeah.
Having dealt with your parlays, I know that's 100% true.
Why not lose the back end of a 4-team parlay and throw the other 3 games up in smoke and lose money to the bet?
My favorite was a couple of years ago when we went like 6 or 7-0 on the first Thursday of the tournament, and you managed to tie it into 4 other games that were going on the next day.
It was a bit unfortunate in terms of the approach, but what could you do? I'll do it again, I'm sure. Like I said, I admitted I'm one of the few guys.
No doubt about it.
I'm admitting I'm a lousy handicapper. I'm not even a good horse handicapper. After all of these years and all of the conversations, all the visits to the track.
I've seen you go at the track. You're a pretty decent horse handicapper.
I don't know, man.
But he always goes too far. That's the problem. He always goes too far. He always goes for the extra 3 races.
Twin pick 10. That's the one I want to hit. You get an exchange ticket if you hit all 10 winners the first day. You get 1 ticket. You get to pick cold 10 winners the next day. It should be simple.
Sure, seems like a good bet. Yeah.
It's only $1 a pop.
That doesn't seem like the kind of thing where some jerk off with like a computer algorithm
Exactly.
is gonna
Yeah.
punch 1,000,000 tickets electronically and totally.
It'd be
screw you.
prohibitive to try and cover all the angles here. All right, Professor, we'll see you next time. And always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for being with us.
You guys have a great
Professor,
one.
ladies and gentlemen. Nice big board there. That was very innovative and very enlightening also. There's a few things that I wouldn't have even thought of. All right, Lubie, that was a lot of fun. We'll be out at the track, 10 Palms later on. A lot of people inquiring about that. Hopefully we'll see Mike Nyman, a new 30-pound lighter Mike Nyman. I mean, where did he have 30 pounds to lose? I don't know about that.
Good for him. I'm happy for him.
Wow. Okay. We'll have to have him up there. Maybe he brings a before picture or something so we can get a little perspective on this.
I don't know. I remember.
Wow, a skinny Mike Nyman. That's going to be interesting. But he was never like.
No, he wasn't overweight. But
some,
for him,
a big obese guy.
No.
Always looked classy and dignified in the suit there when he was a marketing director at Gulfstream. Always a great guy. So maybe we'll see him. And we'd like to see you. We'll be in the 10 Pounds from 1 to 2 with Mike Mayo, the Mike Mayo lunchbox. He did destroy it yesterday, man. See, he can, after eating like a lot of things, he can still down an entire giant hamburger.
Yeah, he ended up finishing
with a thick bun. Yeah,
he finished the burger.
That was pretty. That was pretty impressive there.
I just ate the salads. I stayed away.
All right, so we'll see you later on. Mike Mayo's lunchbox, and then Mayo's off to New Orleans, which that can't be beneficial to any weight loss program. I don't know of anybody that's ever lost weight while visiting New Orleans. I think it's impossible.
And that would be a waste of a trip then. If you're going to New Orleans,
why would you? What are you doing? I mean, in general, I love New Orleans, but it's not like there are a zillion things to do there.
No, it's eating and music.
Yeah,
really what you get is really eating, drinking, and music, I guess.
Drinking, probably would be, right up there with eating in a sharing 1 and 1A position. Because you're always with a cocktail in your hand in New Orleans. So you're walking around on the streets, with a cocktail.
Open carry, like you can just walk around with a hurricane.
I like that you can bring a drink, into a different place than you purchased it at, and they don't give a shit. Hey, welcome. How you doing, man? When are you ready for another one? Let me know.
Exactly.
Watch a live band for a half an hour, and then just go right next door and do the same thing again. It's fantastic.
Yep.
And right away you're hitting it for a dozen oysters, grilled oysters there, which Mayo's, with his sophisticated, sort of air of whatever you would call it, pomposity. But he refuses to acknowledge that Acme really is a good place.
I have been to. That's so funny. I actually have been. If you want to see plantations, you can they have different trips that are like 40 minutes away to see the slave quarters. And the World War II Museum is there. That is true.
I've been to the World War II Museum. It didn't exactly light me up. Although, my inner being was being pulled apart as I knew there was simulcasting going on at the fairgrounds.
There is the fairgrounds. There is.
No, I mean, you go down there, you could take that, that steamboat or whatever the fuck that is. That's okay. The jazz cruise.
We literally took a tour.
Yeah.
Took us to a fucking plantation.
I'm not interested in visiting cemeteries. Or you? Fuck cemeteries. They're depressing.
I don't. To me, I'd keep it to the Bourbon Street French.
And why go to that level of extravagance to, preserve the memory of somebody when you could just throw their ashes at the 16th bowl at Gulfstream?
There you go.
And they'll be happy into perpetuity if there is such a thing.
Not going to do. Mayo's not doing
afterlife.
Any of these things. He's not doing any of these things.
I wouldn't. I mean, if you're doing one, it's such a reach to find some things to do there. So the thing to do is eat, gamble, and drink.
That's it.
And go listen to live music wherever you can find some good live music, which, it's not necessarily everywhere. Because some of it, I don't know. I mean, some of that old school New Orleans stuff that you'll hear, they got like a 90-year-old guy on a tuba, and he's off in the corner there playing When the Saints Go Marching In, and not a particularly resounding version. And you're like, what the fuck are we doing here, man?
They have so much good music and food. You can just keep it moving. I don't know about that. You guys with the casino. We have casinos here. We have a Harrah's here.
It doesn't matter though. It just.
I know you're going to do it. I would. It just.
Your first move every morning is into a casino. It's kind of like when you're staying there. It's a whole different feeling. Right? I mean, where you can't avoid it. Even if you go down and get a cup of coffee, machines are ringing. There are those wild fucking buffaloes. No one's ever hit on it except Jersey Kyle. Exactly. Now let me get out of here. We're schlubbering. All right, but anyway, no, I mean, eating would be the big agenda there, which for Mayo would be a fairly easy thing, and his girl Val is big into this too, so it's great. Although she doesn't show the effects of.
No, she doesn't eat the portions that he eats, but she's open to various eating, and they fit very well in that regard.
I like that he made reservations like 100 places. I never know what I'm going to do there. Never.
I didn't even thought about that. Like,
yeah. I never even think about making a reservation somewhere.
That people do that. I remember when we used to like ask people for recommendations, and they give you 30, and then you get there, and you're like, fuck it.
You can pretty much. It's true. You can walk in almost anywhere, any bar, and see something and go, "Wow, man, that looks great." That somebody's ordered at the bar there, even if there's like only a couple of customers in there. It's really fantastic from that aspect.
Incredibly.
What's that? A funeral? People like to go to funerals for the greats of jazz.
There you go.
Yeah, I forget who was it. It was somebody big that I was there for their big celebration. Some classy brass player, and it was all right. I mean, you see a bunch of goofball people that are all drunk out of their minds. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
Then you walk by a strip club and you think about going in. All right. We'll see you next time. And that'll be 1 o'clock from Gulfstream Park, 10 Palms, Joe Beige and Company.
Yes.
Be a lot of fun with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. And for Mike Lubie, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9/11.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.